In 2014, the world cried along with Raju, the elephant whose tears of freedom went viral. But what the cameras didn't show you was who he left behind. Just a few hundred feet away, his brother in pain, Mohan, was being dragged back into the darkness. For the next 2 years, Mohan earned a heartbreaking nickname, the world's unluckiest elephant. He had endured 55 years of suffering, only to be trapped by a mob that refused to let him go. But this isn't a story about his suffering. This is the story of one of the most dangerous rescue missions in history, and the moment he finally saw his brother again. Mohan's tragedy started long before 2014. In the 1960s, he was poached from the wild as a baby. He was torn from his mother, beaten into submission, and sold. But unlike circus elephants trained to perform, Mohan had a different purpose. He became a status symbol for a powerful landowner who viewed him not as a living creature, but as property. Villagers knew better than to ask about the elephant. The last man who suggested calling a vet got a simple answer. Vets cost money. Mohan doesn't. If he dies, I'll buy another. For decades, his job was to beg. He walked the dusty streets for money, stood outside temples for hours, and was rented out for noisy, chaotic weddings. When he wasn't working, he was chained. For 55 years, his legs were bound in spiked shackles. But what happened in 2016 would turn a forgotten elephant into front-page news and an arrogant owner into a wanted man. After Raju was rescued, the team from Wildlife SOS, the organization behind the mission, didn't stop looking for Mohan. They knew he was out there, but every time they got close, the owner was one step ahead. We missed him by an hour, a frustrated field operative reported after one failed attempt. The tracks are fresh, but the tree is empty. The owner knew we were coming. The owner had a network of informants. If a rescue truck was spotted within 50 miles, Mohan was moved. The owner knew the terrain better than the police did. He avoided the main roads, moving Mohan between a network of remote farms and private orchards owned by his relatives. He kept the elephant in constant motion, never staying in one place long enough for a warrant to catch up. By 2016, time was running out. While the heavy rescue trucks couldn't get close, one undercover scout finally broke through. Dressed as a local farmer, he crept close enough to snap a picture. He didn't dare breathe. If the owner saw him, he wouldn't make it out of the village. The grainy photos he sent back confirmed their worst fears. He was skeletal, covered in untreated abscesses, and surviving on a diet of plastic bags and paper wrappers. But one detail in the photos chilled the vets to the bone. Mohan's ribs were jutting out, proving he was starving, yet his belly was distended and swollen. It didn't make sense. Was it a tumor? Internal bleeding? The vets knew something was growing inside him, stealing every calorie he ate. They just didn't know if it would kill him before they could get there. Then, late one night in July, the silence broke. A phone rang at the headquarters. On the line was an informant risking his life to make the call. He didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Pratapgarh," he whispered, his voice shaking. "He is in Pratapgarh, and the owner knows you are looking. He moves him tonight." The line went dead. Kartik Satyanarayan, the co-founder, slammed the phone down. He knew those roads as well as the danger, but he also knew the stakes. Mohan wouldn't survive another move. He turned to his lead driver. "Wake the team," he ordered. "We have a 6-hour window. If we miss him now, he's gone." They mobilized instantly. They brought in their heavy-lift ambulance, a team of specialized veterinarians, and a squad of police officers. They moved fast, hoping to catch the owner off guard. As the convoy of trucks and police escorts rolled into the district of Pratapgarh, the atmosphere changed instantly. The roads were narrow and dusty. The lead driver checked his side mirror and grabbed the radio. "Boss, eyes up," he said, his voice tight. "Look at the rooftops." Kartik looked out. In every house they passed, shadows were moving. Men were standing on the roofs, holding phones, tracking the convoy. The signal was traveling faster than the trucks. They expected resistance and shouting, but they didn't realize they were driving into a trap. Suddenly, the lead truck slammed on the brakes. Tires skidded in the dust, and the road ahead was blocked, not by a gate, but by people. The owner hadn't just called a few friends. He had rallied the entire village. A mob of nearly 300 men swarmed the street. They were armed with axes, heavy sticks, and stones. They weren't just angry, they were violent. "Lock the doors!" the driver yelled. The mob surrounded the rescue vehicles. They banged on the metal sides, screaming threats. "Go back!" they chanted, the rhythm terrifyingly synchronized. "He is our elephant. If you take him, blood will flow." The rescue team was trapped. Through the dusty window, they could see Mohan. He was tied to a tree less than 50 yards away. He looked confused by the noise, shifting his weight on his bad legs. He was so close they could see the sunken hollows of his temples, but they couldn't reach him. For the rescuers, the instinct was to fight their way through. One assistant grabbed the door handle. "We can't leave him there. He's right in front of us." Kartik grabbed his shoulder. "Stay inside," he ordered. "If we provoke a riot, the mob will panic. They might attack the elephant. We have to wait them out." And so began the longest siege in wildlife SOS history. In the dangerous world of elephant rescue, most missions are executed in a few tense hours. You get in, you save the animal, and you get out. But for Mohan, it became a marathon. The mob blocked the road, and the rescue team blocked the gate. Neither side moved. Kartik ordered the trucks parked bumper to bumper, a steel wall to stop the owner from sneaking Mohan out in the night. But it also meant they were locked in. Hours bled into each other. The supplies ran out fast. A few bottles of water, some packets of biscuits, gone by the second morning. The heat turned the stationary trucks into ovens. Police offered to escort them out for food, but Kartik refused. He knew the game. The moment those trucks moved, the mob would swarm in, and Mohan would vanish forever. "We don't move," Kartik ordered, sharing the last bottle of water with his team. "If we leave for an hour, we lose him forever." Outside, the owner watched from the shade. He saw the team inside the baking truck, passing a single water bottle around, like it was gold. He turned to his men with a cold smirk. "Put down the sticks," he said. "We don't need to fight. The heat is doing the work for us. Thirst will break them faster than any beating." But he underestimated them. The team didn't need food, they just needed a signal. Trapped in the cabin, they turned the rescue into a digital war. They used their phones to blast the story to the world. They didn't just post updates. The team sent out a distress signal, and the world answered. A petition to save Mohan went viral, gathering 200,000 signatures. The pressure on the local government shifted from local issue to global scandal. By the third morning, the team was running on fumes. That's when the owner played his final card. He filed an emergency petition to freeze the police operation. He walked up to the truck, smirked at the team, and delivered the news himself. "Pack up," he scoffed. "I'll keep this case in court for years. You will never touch this elephant." He thought he had buried the rescue in paperwork. He didn't know he had just made a fatal mistake. In the rush to file the petition, his lawyers exposed the one document he didn't have, an ownership certificate. The trap snapped shut on him. In India, keeping an elephant without that paper isn't ownership, it's poaching. By rushing to court, he hadn't stopped the rescue. He had signed his own confession. The Lucknow bench of the High Court moved fast. The judge looked at the delays, the mob violence, and the suffering animal. And he didn't just issue a ruling, he issued a warning. He slapped a contempt of court order on the local administration. The message to the police was clear. Get that elephant now, or you go to jail next. The order changed everything. The district magistrate realized his own career was on the line, so he sent in heavy police reinforcements. Within hours, sirens wailed, not one or two, but dozens. A convoy of police trucks tore through the blockade, followed by officers in full riot gear. The police chief didn't wait. He stepped out, walked straight up to the owner, and held the warrant in his face. "This ends now," he warned, his voice low and dangerous. "Move your men, or you sleep in a cell tonight." The village went silent. For a long moment, nobody moved. The owner tightened his grip on his heavy bamboo stick. His eyes darted from the warrant to the chief. One swing. That's all it would take to turn this rescue into a bloodbath. The team held their breath, waiting for the first stone to fly. But then the owner looked past the chief. He saw the army of officers behind him. He saw the riot shields and the tear gas launchers. His arrogance evaporated. He realized his game was over. He loosened his grip and dropped the stick in the dust. The sheer show of force had broken the mob's will. The crowd dispersed, grumbling and defeated. The human wall crumbled, and the path to the tree was finally open. The team jumped out of the trucks. Leading the charge was the organization's head vet, Dr. Yadaraj. He didn't wait. He walked straight toward the tree. Up close, the reality of 55 years of neglect was horrifying. Mohan was leaning against the trunk, too weak to stand properly. His body was covered in old scars and fresh wounds. He looked at the humans with tired eyes. When the vet raised his hand, Mohan flinched. To him, a raised hand had always meant pain. He braced himself for the blow, but Dr. Yadaraj froze. He lowered his hand and slowly held out an offering. No stick, no hook, just a green banana. "It's over, Mohan," he whispered, ignoring the police shouting orders behind him. "We're late, I know, but we're here now." Mohan hesitated. He sniffed the air and sensed that the fear in the air was gone. He reached out his trunk, took the fruit, and let out a low rumble of relief. Loading him was the final battle. Mohan was exhausted, and his legs were weak. The team had to be incredibly gentle. It took hours of coaxing, inch by inch, until the old giant finally stepped onto the ambulance. As the truck pulled away from the village of Pratapgarh, the team didn't cheer. They just collapsed in exhaustion. They left the owner standing in the dust, furious and defeated. In the months that followed, he would flood the courts with appeals, screaming that his property had been stolen. But the High Court's ruling was a steel door that had slammed shut. Without an ownership certificate, the law saw him for what he was, a poacher with an empty chain. He would never touch Mohan again. The team had finally won the war. But they still had to get him to safety. The journey to the sanctuary was long. It was a 500-kilometer drive to Mathura. But this time Mohan wasn't being hidden in the back of a smuggler's truck. He was in an ambulance equipped with fans, water, and vets, monitoring his every breath. Along the way, the team stopped in a field to chop fresh fodder. For the first time in years, Mohan ate green, juicy grass instead of plastic or garbage. As the convoy turned off the highway and approached the sanctuary gates, the mood shifted. The long chase was over. It was 4:30 p.m. on September 22, 2016, when the truck finally hissed to a halt at the Wildlife SOS Elephant Conservation and Care Center. The heavy metal ramp lowered, revealing a scene Mohan could never have imagined. He wasn't stepping out into an empty field. He was stepping out under a giant purple banner that read, "Welcome home, Mohan." Mohan walked down the ramp, placing his feet not onto concrete, but onto soft earth. He paused, looking around at the red festive flags fluttering in the breeze. He saw dozens of staff members lining the fence, cheering for him. There were no chains or spikes. For the first time in 55 years, the crowd around him wasn't a mob holding stones. It was a family welcoming him home. Then the real reunion was about to happen. The team walked Mohan toward his new enclosure. He moved slowly, still unsure of this strange place where no one shouted and no chains waited. Then he stopped. Standing at the fence was a shape he hadn't seen in 2 years. It was Raju. For a moment, neither elephant moved. Then Raju stepped forward and pressed his trunk through the bars. Mohan reached out and touched it. They stood like that, trunk to trunk, breathing each other in. Just 2 old survivors recognizing each other. Some of the staff cheered and others cried as the unluckiest elephant had finally found his luck. The medical team then went to work. The assessment confirmed what the photos had hinted. That swollen belly wasn't a tumor. It was a massive parasitic infestation, starving him from the inside out. Dr. Yadaraj built a recovery plan around the damage. High-calorie diet, liver supplements, painkillers for his ruined joints. But the real healing wasn't medicine. It was water. The first time Mohan saw the hydrotherapy pool, he refused to go near it. He didn't understand. Water had never been offered to him. But the team was patient. They coaxed him forward, inch by inch, until his feet touched the surface. The moment he walked in, 55 years of weight lifted off his joints. He stood still for a long moment, feeling something he hadn't felt in decades. Relief. Then he splashed water over his back. For the first time, he looked at peace. Mohan's recovery was a miracle, but miracles have limits. The decades of abuse had carved damage that love couldn't undo. His organs were failing. His body was giving out. The team knew it, even if they didn't want to accept it. He had a little over a year, but that year held more kindness than the 55 before it. He learned that a raised hand meant a treat, not a beating. He learned the comfort of sleeping on sand instead of mud. He learned that when humans approached his enclosure, they came with fruit, not chains. When he passed away in 2017, he wasn't alone. He was surrounded by the same people who had refused to leave him during that 3-day siege. The ones who had sat in a baking truck, splitting their last bottle of water because they wouldn't abandon him. 55 years of cruelty, 1 year of kindness. But that 1 year? It was enough. Mohan's story isn't about luck. It's about the people who refuse to quit, the ones who hold the line when everyone else walks away. He didn't die as the world's unluckiest elephant. He died as proof that giving up is a choice, and so is showing up.